Why don't we get our second SEC Spring Football Focus? Let's go down to Tuscaloosa. We bring in from the 24/7 Sports Network, BamaOnline.com. Travis Reier joins us here on the new Sentinel Sports Page to look back on Alabama's spring game and spring practice overall for the Crimson Tide. Travis, Vincent, Jesse, how you doing, TR?
Doing great with that bump music. I was waiting on Brent Musburger to come in, old school CBS-wise. You're listening live.
Or Vern Lundquist. Is he still doing those CBS games?
Last time I heard, he did that one. He said that you're looking live at $90,000 when Alabama played Florida in the swamp. Kind of blew that intro a little bit.
Unbelievable. That's a subject for another day. All right, Travis, another great crowd. I think fifth best. Actually, it's nothing compared to some of the crowds you've seen there in Tuscaloosa, but the weather was nice. What, 78,000 plus? Is that what the crowd was?
Yeah, that was the estimated call on it. It's hard to tell a lot of times because people come and go, but and not what they've had in the past, but probably still going to be 30-40% more than what you'll see at other places, at least during spring practice. So it's still a fairly attractive venue and outing for football fans in the spring.
All right, Travis, let's get into some meat and potatoes about this football team. Very impressive watching them this weekend, and a lot of the buzz now is about true freshman running back T.J. Yeldon. Talk about this kid and where he what he did in the spring game and in spring camp, and where he might be in the mix this year in the backfield for Alabama.
Yeah, just really an advanced athlete in terms of size, speed, everything for a guy who really is a second semester high school senior. I was an early enrollee and came in, actually had a wrist type injury, arm injury early in spring training that hampered him a little bit, limited him a little bit, but he was not limited on Saturday. Nearly 200 total yards of offense. And the thing that impressed me the most is, you look at the guy and he's, a specimen. He's already 6'2", about 215, 220 pounds, but he looked to be fairly well-rounded for a back at this point in his development. You get a lot of running backs that come into programs and they can help early, like an Isaiah Crowell last year at Georgia, because you hand them the football and they can run with it. Well, that's the other aspects of the job, catching the football, pass protection. Those are the things that a lot of times keep young backs off the field, but he looks like he's fairly advanced in those areas as well. So the mix at running back, very interesting heading into the summer. Obviously, Eddie Lacy trying to get back from that turf toe surgery. Then you look at Jalston Fowler, another big back who can really bang it between the tackles. D. Hart, more of a smaller back, who also was a five-star recruit a year ago. And then now Yeldon. So a stable, no doubt, of very talented backs.
Not to harp on Yeldon too much, but who's somebody you could compare him to in the SEC maybe in the last 10 or 15 years?
Yeldon, as far as his body type, he's more like, I would say, a Glenn Coffey type from a few years ago. He's a little bit leaner and longer than what you've seen the last few years with Trent Richardson and Mark Ingram at Alabama. Mm-hmm. But as far as other places, going back to maybe more of a Fred Taylor type at Florida, years and years ago, those kind of backs. Again, he's a little different than what they've had the last few years because he is 6'2". He's a little bit upright, not as compact, but showed you on Saturday that he can do a lot of things.
Visiting with Travis Reier from BamaOnline.com, part of the 24/7 Sports Network, our SEC Spring Football Focus on Alabama. 2 teams a day through Wednesday as we wrap teams up after their spring games. Look back on camp. Sal Sunseri here at Tennessee, as you well know, is a defensive coordinator, Travis, and I think is making a lot of progress in trying to improve this Tennessee defense. I'm not sure if he is having a better spring than his son Vinny in Tuscaloosa. Talk about Vinny Sunseri and his camp, his spring game, and him moving forward.
Yeah, Coach Sal was a pretty good loss, pretty bad loss pretty big loss for Alabama. But the fact that he left Vinny behind, I think that made it a lot easier to swallow. Vinny has been outstanding almost from the moment he stepped on campus last year. Played a big role on special teams and ended the season as pretty much being their number 3 safety after Will Lowry went out with a knee injury. So he has built upon that and looks to be entrenched as a starter opposite Robert Lester at the safety position. But he's also versatile, and that allows them to use him in their sub-packages at different spots. When they go to the nickel, he's capable of playing the star position, which is usually reserved for the third corner, but he's able to do some of that. He can play the dime back position when they go 6 defensive backs, and that gives them some flexibility, too, because they're extremely deep at that position as well. Clinton Dix, a true sophomore, with a very promising future, can come on the field and play safety. They can play 3 safeties on the field together and really put a formidable trio out there.
What about quarterback A.J. McCarron and the progress of his career? You think he'll ever be considered one of the elite quarterbacks, not just in the SEC, but the country, or is he always going to be a guy who facilitates the offense and hands off to marquee running backs?
I think they're going to look to A.J. McCarron this year to take more shots. I don't know if they're necessarily going to throw it more, but they're definitely interested in producing more explosive plays. And he's got the skill set to make that happen. He's got a big arm. He's confident. He seems to be at a point in his development where if he throws an interception, that's not going to keep him from coming back out the next series and taking pops and going down the field with the football. And that was the case on Saturday. With Christian Jones coming along at wide receiver and some of the other guys they have, like Kenny Bell with his speed on the outside, I think a real focal point for the Alabama passing game this year, again, will be getting those yards per catch numbers up. Marquise Mays, Darius Hanks are guys that caught a lot of balls during their time at Alabama, but they weren't 16, 17 yards per catch kind of guys, and I think they feel like they may have that right now at wide receiver to go along with McCarron's ability to go down the field.
Reviewing Alabama's spring camp with Travis Reier from BamaOnline.com, events Ferrara, along with Jesse Smithey. Talk about the defense, Travis, and what you've seen in camp and filling some of the holes from all the talented players that are moving on, and some of them going to be drafted in the first round of the draft here in a couple weeks.
Physically, it's the most impressive collection of defensive linemen I've ever seen at Alabama. And they can go 1 through 6, especially at defensive end, and just put guys who look like future NFL players on the field. They have so much depth at end that they're able to play Jesse Williams, who started every game at end last year, inside at nose tackle. And you hear defensive end at nose tackle, you got to keep in mind this is a guy who goes 6'3" plus, about 320 pounds. So physically he can handle it inside on the point, and then he's athletic. So he's a different type of nose tackle than what they've had maybe in Terrence Cody and Josh Chapman, in that he can make plays. I mean, you try to handle him one-on-one with a center, he's going to make a lot of TFLs and sacks. So they probably upgrade athletically with him in there. At end, Damian Squares played a lot of football. He's back. They've had a nice position battle at the other end spot with Ed Stinson and Quentin Dial. Looks like Stinson was a little bit ahead in that race at the end of spring, but Dial will be there. Then they've got some young guys that they brought in 2 seasons ago that are very impressive. Jeffrey Pagan, LaMichael Fanning, and DJ Petway might be as impressive a defensive end class as I've seen collectively from Alabama in a long time. So depth up front is tremendous, and the front 7 looks to be very good. A little bit of a question mark on the outside at linebacker, although Adrian Hubbard has really come on and looks like he'll give them a real pass rushing presence off the edge.
They passed the eye test, Travis. I'll tell you that. Watching them on TV, this Alabama team has as many NFL type of bodies that I can remember. And you were there, Travis, and seeing the evolution from Shula to the Saban years. I mean, it's so different.
It's JV to varsity.
Yeah.
And you're right. We went to many a practice together, Vinny, and there were times in 04, maybe 06, 05 team was 10-2, won the Cotton Bowl, but depth-wise, talent-wise, they were nowhere in the ballpark. I mean, it's amazing to see it, because I think, in those years, we were all in awe of like where Southern Cal was in terms of everybody else as far as pure talent. And it's almost like they picked it up and moved it to Tuscaloosa. It's been an amazing transition to watch from a talent standpoint. And it's not only reflective of how well they've recruited, but player development in Alabama. I can't imagine it being any better anywhere else.
Last couple things with you, Travis. First, talk about that offensive line and how good you think this group can be.
Can be very good. I think depth is a concern. They can't afford Barrett Jones to suffer an injury. He is obviously moved in as the starting center. That's important, obviously, to have him at that spot for obvious reasons. But also, if you lose a guy like Barrett Jones, you lose your top backup at left tackle in case something happens to Cyrus Kwanjo, the sophomore who has moved in at left tackle now. But they return 4 offensive line starters who have combined to make over 90 career starts. And, Chance Warmack is one of the best guards in the SEC, perhaps all of college football. Anthony Steen is coming along very nicely at right guard. DJ Fluker, the former 5-star prospect who has worked extremely hard to drop about 70 pounds and make himself an NFL prospect at that position. So, it's the pieces are in place. But again, an injury or two, they're maybe not as equipped to handle that this year as they were a year ago.
Last thing, high-profile flaw that Alabama had last year was the kicking game, place kicking specifically. How has that progressed in spring camp?
Well, perhaps one of the brightest spots from Saturday's A-Day game was Cade Foster making a 48-yard field goal, and he needed that, especially in front of a crowd. He needed to make that kind of kick after the season he had, which was obviously not very good. Had a very good freshman campaign. Last year was not good during his sophomore year, but perhaps he's ready to make some improvement. Jeremy Shelley also returns, a guy who had 5 field goals in the BCS National Championship game. Inside 45 yards or so, he's fine, but they're bringing in a big-time true freshman, Adam Griffin, that will obviously enter that mix as well. So, I think they feel okay about their place kicking. I know they feel better about their punting. Cody Mandel has improved there, but place kicking, a little bit of an open question, more so the long field goals than anything else.
Following Tennessee's opponents, very important. We're going to do an awful lot of it the rest of the spring and throughout the summer and getting you ready for this football season. And you can get a lot more on Alabama at BamaOnline.com, part of the 24/7 Sports Network. Travis Reier, Chris Walsh, Shane Youngblood, Tim Watts, and others do a terrific job covering Alabama on the 24/7 Sports Network. TR, always great to talk to you. Really appreciate it, bud.
Always enjoy it, Vinny. Thank you so much.
All right, Travis, be good. That is Travis Reier. You can follow him on Twitter. It's at Travis Reier. And then you can follow them on Twitter as well. It's BamaOnline247.com.